The interpretation of narratives is to some extent subjective, because everyone can experience art differently. At the same time, using literary analysis, we can still explain the most reasonable meanings that the artist meant to convey or that the audience is likely to understand. To understand themes of any work of art, however, spoilers are involved. Heavy spoilers. So consider this your spoiler warning. Ghost of Tsushima, Director's Cut by Sucker Punch Productions, is an open-world action-adventure that tells a tale of one samurai's struggle with honor in a war with a dishonorable enemy. The game explores many themes related to honor. In the first video, Part 1, we explore different themes related to the honor of samurai. In this video, Part 2, we will analyze further themes of honor during a war and answer the question, how does Jin Sakai, the Ghost of Tsushima, show honor in warfare? The first theme of today's video has to do with the idea of showing mercy towards captives in warfare, especially civilians. This theme is a little less obvious than the others because the inhabitants of Tsushima are never really in a winning position in the war, and therefore are unable to demonstrate mercy towards captives. But at the start of the game, they seem to want to fight the war with honor. After the Khan kills Lord Adachi in what the samurai perceive as a dishonorable way, Lord Shimura then suggests that the Mongols are cowards and no longer deserve mercy. This idea of mercy, or more importantly, the lack of it, is pervasive as the game paints the Mongols as cruel and brutal towards prisoners of war in general and civilians in particular. When attacking Castle Shimura, Khotun Khan forces Clan Shimura to surrender by executing civilians of surrounding villages until they give up, resorting to what would essentially be considered terrorist tactics in modern-day warfare. The Mongols regularly use captured civilians as target practice for learning the way of the bow, not content with shooting regular targets. Perhaps even worse is how the Mongols don't want to feed those they have captured. Executing prisoners is less resource-intensive than feeding them. Later on, when Jin Sakai manages to rescue Lord Shimura, Khotun Khan begins destroying farmsteads in order to starve all the civilians. When Jin manages to free Castle Shimura, the Mongols begin burning down forests and huge swaths of land, destroying even more sustenance for the locals. In the Book of 2 Kings, it is implied there should be mercy not only for civilians, but even for prisoners of war. Once, when the king of Syria was warring against Israel, he took counsel with his servants, saying, "At such and such a place shall be my camp." But the man of God sent word to the king of Israel, "Beware that you do not pass this place, for the Syrians are going down there." And the king of Israel sent to the place about which the man of God told him. Thus he used to warn him, so that he saved himself there more than once or twice. And when the Syrians came down against him, Elisha prayed to the Lord and said, "Please strike this people with blindness." So he struck them with blindness in accordance with the prayer of Elisha. And Elisha said to them, "This is not the way, and this is not the city. Follow me, and I will bring you to the man whom you seek." And he led them to Samaria. As soon as they entered Samaria, Elisha said, "O Lord, open the eyes of these men, that they may see." So the Lord opened their eyes, and they saw, and behold, they were in the midst of Samaria. As soon as the king of Israel saw them, he said to Elisha, "My father, shall I strike them down? Shall I strike them down?" He answered, "You shall not strike them down. Would you strike down those whom you have taken captive with your sword and with your bow? Set bread and water before them, that they may eat and drink and go to their master." So he prepared for them a great feast, and when they had eaten and drunk, he sent them away, and they went to their master. And the Syrians did not come again on raids into the land of Israel. 2 Kings chapter 6, verses 8 to 10 and verses 18 to 23. Like the prophet Elisha suggests, the Mongols should have been more merciful towards captives and civilians when prosecuting their war against Tsushima, even if they were not going to fight the war in the samurai's way, which is related to our next theme. Our second theme for this video is honor in fighting with courage, meaning head-on.
When we fight, we face our enemy head-on.
This concept of direct fighting is contrasted with indirect fighting, which is described with negative language like trickery, cowardice, or like a thief.
Only cowards strike from the shadows.
From the first moments of the game, the Mongols demonstrate this concept of trickery in warfare. The samurai Lord Adachi offers to duel Khotun Khan's champion, but Khotun Khan kills him in what is essentially a parley or truce-making moment, demonstrating his lack of honor. The 80 samurai then charge head-on and are mostly wiped out. When Jin Sakai survives thanks to the medical attention of a thief, Yuna, he tries to rescue Lord Shimura, again using the samurai's direct head-on methods, and again nearly dying. From then on, Jin begins to learn unconventional warfare, characterized by the motif of the ghost.
He is a vengeful spirit, back from the grave, to slaughter the Mongols.
The use of kunai, powder weapons, or even commandeering Mongol hwachas, as opposed to the honorable methods of the samurai. These unconventional methods are questioned by other samurai like Sensei Ishikawa, who suggests that Jin fights like a thief. When Jin starts fighting in these ways, Khoten Khan remarks to Lord Shimura that Jin is not fighting in an honorable way, that he is not fighting like a samurai. Even when Jin rescues Shimura, his uncle warns him not to continue to use these brutal tactics.
Without honor, you can't continue down this path.
Meanwhile, the Mongols continue to use creative tactics that the samurai consider dishonorable, such as retreating to lure the Japanese onto a bridge before destroying it. In perhaps what the game considers the most dishonorable moment, Khoten Khan duels Jin, and when it appears that he will lose, he uses some dirty fighting and tries to have Jin killed by his soldiers. While the Bible does have principles regarding war, such as the mercy towards captives mentioned in the first theme, it also seems to lean towards unconventional warfare rather than the samurai code of fighting head-on. And the Lord said to Joshua, "Do not fear and do not be dismayed. Take all the fighting men with you, and arise, go up to Ai. See, I have given into your hand the king of Ai and his people, his city, and his land. And you shall do to Ai and its king as you did to Jericho and its king. Only its spoil and its livestock you shall take as plunder for yourselves. Lay an ambush against the city, behind it." So Joshua and all the fighting men arose to go up to Ai, and Joshua chose 30,000 mighty men of valor and sent them out by night. And he commanded them, "Behold, you shall lie in ambush against the city, behind it. Do not go very far from the city, but all of you remain ready." Then the Lord said to Joshua, "Stretch out the javelin that is in your hand toward Ai, for I will give it into your hand." And Joshua stretched out the javelin that was in his hand toward the city. And the men in the ambush rose quickly out of their place, and as soon as he stretched out his hand, they ran and entered the city and captured it. And they hurried to set the city on fire. So when the men of Ai looked back, behold, the smoke of the city went up to heaven, and they had no power to flee this way or that, for the people who had fled to the wilderness turned back against the pursuers. And when Joshua and all Israel saw that the ambush had captured the city, and that the smoke of the city went up, they turned back and struck down the men of Ai. And the others came out of the city against them, so they were in the midst of Israel, some on this side and some on that side. And Israel struck them down until there was left none that survived or escaped. But the king of Ai they took alive and brought him near to Joshua. Joshua chapter 8, verses 1 to 4, and verses 18 to 23. Like Joshua, Jin slowly learns to fight indirectly, giving up some parts of his code of honor in order to win against a superior force, in order to survive, which is related to our third theme. A third theme related to honor in warfare in Ghost of Tsushima is that of exceptions to the honor code for survival. This motif of surviving is repeated often when dealing with why some good people may not have honor.
You have to do whatever it takes to survive.
For instance, Yuna discusses how she was a thief and stole to survive, even though that was not something that she really wanted to do. In some of the side quests, peasants like Ichi suggest that working with the Mongols is the only way to survive when there are no samurai around to help, which Jin seems sympathetic towards.
We're both survivors. We have darkness in us.
Sensei Ishikawa's student Tomoe also suggests that she sided with the Mongols to survive, which Jin seems less sympathetic to.
But it sounds more natural coming from you.
Khoten Khan also compliments Jin on his willingness to make exceptions to the samurai code of honor, suggesting that they are both survivors. This idea that there can be exceptions to honor codes or laws for survival is also taught by Jesus. At that time, Jesus went through the grain fields on the Sabbath. His disciples were hungry, and they began to pluck heads of grain and to eat. But when the Pharisees saw it, they said to him, "Look, your disciples are doing what is not lawful to do on the Sabbath." He said to them, "Have you not read what David did when he was hungry, and those who were with him? How he entered the house of God and ate the bread of the presence, which is not lawful for him to eat, nor for those who were with him, but only for the priests? Or have you not read in the law how on the Sabbath the priests in the temple profane the Sabbath and are guiltless?" He went on from there and entered their synagogue, and a man was there with a withered hand. And they asked him, "Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath?" so that they might accuse him. He said to them, "Which one of you, who has a sheep, if it falls into a pit on the Sabbath, will not take hold of it and lift it out? Of how much more value is a man than a sheep? So it is lawful to do good on the Sabbath." Then he said to the man, "Stretch out your hand." And the man stretched out, and it was restored, healthy like the other. But the Pharisees went out and conspired against him, how to destroy him. Matthew chapter 12, verses 1 to 5 and verses 9 to 14. Like how Jesus suggests that there are exceptions to the law for survival and to help others, Jin also makes exceptions to his honor code so that he can protect others, which is connected to our last theme. The last theme for today's video on honor in warfare is that of sacrificing honor to protect others. Early on in the game, a young Jin tells Lord Shimura that what honor means to him more than anything is to protect others.
Protecting people. The ones who can't fight for themselves.
Something that his father also did, according to Sensei Ishikawa.
Your father protected the people above all else. A true samurai.
The game provides a foil for this idea in that of Lady Masako, who sacrifices her samurai honor of self-control, loyalty, and justice for revenge. In contrast, Jin also sacrifices his honor, but to protect people. He starts by sacrificing his code and assassinating Mongols rather than fighting them head-on in order to prevent the Mongols from executing hostages, something Yuna says she has seen them do. Later, Jin uses a Mongol hwacha, something Lord Shimura did not want him to do, by reminding Shimura that his honor would prevent him from protecting the very people he sent to contact the shogun. Jin also sacrifices his honor in poisoning Khoten Khan's army in order that more people who volunteered to fight for him would not die. When Shimura urges Jin to blame Yuna and declare himself Jin Shimura, Jin rejects this and declares himself the Ghost, sacrificing his adoption into Clan Shimura and therefore his future as the next Jito.
I am not your son. I am the Ghost.
In essence, Jin sacrifices his honor, his home, his title as a samurai lord in order to become a nameless, unsung hero, a vengeful spirit, the Ghost, to protect others.
Sacrificed everything I knew to save our people. I gave them hope. You did nothing.
In contrast, Lord Shimura, in order to maintain his position as head of Clan Shimura and the Jito of Tsushima, would sacrifice as many men as it took for a direct assault. In the end, he would even sacrifice his nephew, Jin, whose own sacrifices of honor are what saved him in the first place. If you choose the canonical ending, the spare him ending, that would contrast Jin with Shimura, because Jin would sacrifice his own honor to protect his uncle's life, while Shimura would sacrifice Jin to protect his own honor and position. In the book of Philippians, the Apostle Paul tells us that Jesus sacrificed his honor and position in order to save others. Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves. Let each of you look not only to his own interests, but also to the interests of others. Have this mind among you, which is yours in Christ Jesus, who, though he was in the form of God, did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped, but emptied himself by taking the form of a servant, being born in the likeness of men. And being found in human form, he humbled himself by being obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross. Philippians chapter 2, verses 3 to 8. Like Jesus, Jin Sakai gives up everything to be a nobody, because to him, the most important aspect of honor was saving others. The narrative of Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut explores many themes related to the honor of being a samurai and honor in warfare. In the first video, part 1, we explored the themes related to the honor of being samurai and what that means for the clans of Tsushima. In this video, part 2, we took a look at the themes related to honor and warfare developed in the game, like mercy, fighting head-on, survival, and most of all, sacrificing to protect others. For me, these two videos were really interesting to make due to how Jin struggles with some of the ideas of honor and how the Bible also agrees with some perspectives of samurai honor, but not others. If you enjoyed these videos, I actually made another biblical themes video for the narrative themes of Iki Island, the DLC included with Director's Cut. That's all I have for you in this video. Bless you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If this video blessed you in some way, please consider watching some of my other videos, subscribing, or sharing with me some of your thoughts in the comments below.